My name is Jennifer Coble and I'm with Biologic Therapies. Today I'm going to be showing you how to properly handle and filter your bone marrow using our kit as well as our autospin, which is our centrifuge. So I'm going to go through the steps on how to properly load your machine as well as filter your bone marrow. This is what your kit looks like when you get it. So the first thing that we're going to do is open up the kit. This eventually will go on to sterile field. So I'm going to set this aside for a minute. In the bottom of your kit, there's a smaller box, and this is what you will need to load your centrifuge. So now we're going to go ahead and load our autospin centrifuge. First, we'll turn it on. The power switch is on the left side. So we're going to go ahead and open both doors. And I'm going to take my arms, take it all the way to the right and all the way back. Anytime you load anything on to your centrifuge, pull these arms all the way back. Now I'm going to go ahead and open my center box. You will find your ACDA. I'm going to set this aside. This is what we will transfer on to sterile field. My 60 milliliter syringe I will put next to the centrifuge. This is what will collect our PPP or platelet poor plasma. This is our 10 ml syringe, and this is what we will connect to the left side of the centrifuge. This will collect our finished product. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open my disposable. Now I'm going to take my disposable and load it into our autospin centrifuge. Make sure this T is facing your body and these elbows are pointing down. Also, have this window facing forward. If it's not, just go ahead and spin this around so that window is facing you. Now we're going to feed the blue cap into the centrifuge. Pull that through lightly. Now when your white piece goes through, make sure the wings are east and west. If it gets stuck, do not pull. Pull it back through, reposition, and then lightly pull through. With these elbows facing down, place your disposable into the centrifuge. And press down until it clicks. Take your T and put it through that tooth there and your tubing under this hook. Make sure your tubing is not twisted when you connect it. Apply your tubing naturally. Take your white piece up here, fit it in place, and lock it. Now, you don't want your tubing pulled too tight and you don't want too much slack. So you can go ahead and use about a 2-finger rule. Lightly push it into here and make sure it's in that groove. Now I can go ahead and close my first door. And then you'll see your green light. Now you'll go ahead and floss your tubing, and then we can connect our 10 milliliter syringe to the left side. Anytime you connect a syringe to the centrifuge, make sure all air is out. I'm going to take my blue cap off. And be careful not to touch the tip of my white wings to my fingers or the centrifuge. Put my wings within that groove, and then I'll push this all the way to the right and all the way up. Now your 10 milliliter syringe is locked in place and ready to collect your final product. And as you can see, there's a green light above number 1. So now we'll go ahead and transfer the center tray onto sterile field. So you're going to peel back, and your scrub tech will take out your center tray, and I'll take this onto sterile field. I'll pull back this layer, and now we'll go ahead and prep our kit for the draw. The first thing that we are going to do is transfer on 10 mLs of your heparin, which is 1,000 units per milliliter. We'll transfer that into one of your clear cups. And you can go ahead and mark your clear cups because we will also be transferring our ACDA, which is our anticoagulant, into the other clear cup. Now for the ACDA, you'll only need a total of 10 for the syringes, but I always like to transfer a little bit extra. So I transfer about 15 mLs of ACDA onto sterile field. So now what we're going to do is we're going to coat our two 30 ml syringes with our heparin. We're also going to coat our cannula as well as our plunger. So I'm going to draw up my heparin, pull it all the way back, coat my syringe, and then transfer it back into the clear cup. I'm going to take my other 30 ml syringe, drop my heparin, go ahead and coat my syringe, and with this one, I'm going to take apart my cannula and attach it onto the end of the 30 ml syringe. So we will go ahead and coat our cannula, our trocar, as well as our plunger. Attach this on here. And when I'm transferring my heparin back into my clear cup, I'll go ahead and coat my trocar along with my plunger. Okay, take this off. So now we have both of our 30 ml syringes coated with heparin. When you're reassembling your cannula, you need to make sure that these little lines are lined up. As you can see, they're not lined up right now. So I'm going to go ahead and twist back. You'll feel a little click. It's about a half turn back. Retwist, and now they're lined up. Make sure that these lines are lined up properly for the draw. So now we have our two 30s coated with our heparin, as well as our cannula and our plunger. Now we can take our 30 ml and we're going to draw up 5 mLs of our ACDA, which is our anticoagulant. Okay, so we have 5 in this one. And then we'll go ahead and drop 5 mLs in the other one. So now our 30s are ready for our draw, and I'm going to go ahead and hook up my filter. So this is the filter on the far end of the kit. I'm going to take my 3-way stopcock and connect it to the end with the blue clamp. Okay. And on the far end, I'm going to take my 60 BD syringe. The centrifuge needs a BD to run off of, and it has to be 60. So make sure all your air is out, connect it to the far end of the filter. We're going to go ahead and heparinize our filter system as well. So I put the 12 on the side port to collect the heparin before we filter our bone marrow. I'm going to go ahead and put my 3-way cock stop off to the 60, and I'm going to clamp my blue clamp. Now I can take my other 12, draw up the rest of my heparin, take my blue cap off, and shoot it into my filter. So now at this point you can transfer this off of sterile field. Unless you'll be filtering on sterile, then you can just set it aside for now. While you wait for your bone marrow draw, go ahead and keep flipping this because we want our filter nice and coated with that heparin. So now you're going to take your driver adapter and chuck this up to your sterile drill. For your in-office draws, your drill does not have to be sterile because this acts as your sterile brake. Once it's chucked, we're going to go ahead and connect it to our bmac. So now once your bmac is chucked to your drill, you can go ahead and hand off your 30 ml syringes to your surgeon to do his or her draw. When you're ready to filter your first 30 of bone marrow aspirate, unclamp your blue clamp and draw your heparin off into the side port. And then turn your stopcock off to your 12 milliliter syringe filled with your heparin. If there's a little bit of heparin still in the tubing, that's okay. We don't want too much because it's harsh on the cells. So now, once I've received my first 30 of bone marrow aspirate, I'm going to go ahead and rock it while I gauge the second draw. When the second draw is close to completion, I'll go ahead and take off my 12 milliliter syringe and carefully hook up my first 30 of bone marrow. And now I will start to filter. As I filter, I go nice and slow. As I filter, I give myself about a minute to filter the bone marrow through. You want to go nice and slow so you're not activating any platelets or causing any damage to the cells. I put my hand on the bottom of the 60 as a guide. You should not have to pull. If you start pulling and pushing at the same time, you might cause some foaming or activation. Initially, I may pull my 60 a little bit just to help get it flowing into my syringe. Otherwise, you just have to push from the top 30. So once I'm done with my first 30, I'll go ahead and take off my syringe. You can pull back a little bit to release any negative pressure to prevent splattering. Now, I'll take my second 30 milliliter syringe, which has been rocking back and forth while the first one was filtering. Connect it to your filter and follow the same steps. Filter nice and slow so you avoid platelet activation. When you're done with your final 30, as you can see, there's a lot of bone marrow still in my tubing. So you can take off the 30, draw some air into that 30, and use that air to push that last bone marrow through. Okay, now we have a full 60 and we're ready to connect it to our autospin centrifuge. Take your 3-way stopcock off to everything and take off your 60 milliliter syringe. Okay, now I'm going to hook it up. When you connect your bone marrow to your centrifuge, make sure all air is out of your syringe. Push your bone marrow aspirate to the top. And now connect it to your centrifuge. Once again, save your blue cap for the end. Put your wings within that divot. Handles to the right. Lock your syringe in place and close the door. As you can see, you'll have 3 green lights and your centrifuge is ready to run. Now you can use the plus and minus buttons to customize your final product. You can choose anywhere from 3 milliliters to 10 milliliters of final product. For this spin, I'll go ahead and choose 6. Now I can press play. And if I choose to have PPP or platelet poor plasma, I can now press that button. The centrifuge is now at 1,000 RPMs. It's going to go ahead and load your product, and it will then ramp up to 2,800 RPMs, and that's where it will separate off your red blood cells. The centrifuge takes about 16.5 minutes to process start to finish. As you can see, the centrifuge is pushing all of your product out of your 60. So once it's fully filled, you will not have any more product in your 60 milliliter syringe. So now your centrifuge is ramping up to 2,800 RPMs. At this stage, it's separating off your red blood cells. Start to finish, the spin takes about 16.5 minutes. At about 8 minutes, it will then distribute your waste into your 60 milliliter syringe. At this point, all of your waste is distributed into the 60 milliliter syringe, and the centrifuge is ramping up to 3,800 RPMs, where it is concentrating your product. At just under 2 minutes to go, your centrifuge will slow down to 1,000 RPMs. It will prepare to load your final product into your 10 milliliter syringe. Under 30 seconds to go, after your final product is filled, it will then pause for you to replace your second syringe for your PPP collection. Now the centrifuge has paused, allowing you to replace your second syringe with your empty 60 milliliter syringe to collect your platelet poor plasma. At this time, you can open your second door, pull your arm all the way back, and replace your waste syringe with your empty 60 milliliter syringe. Connect your empty syringe, put it back into the groove, lock your arms into place, and close your door. We have all 3 green lights, and at this point, you can go ahead and press play. Now it will distribute your platelet poor plasma into your 60 milliliter syringe. If you opt not to have your platelet poor plasma will then be distributed into your waste syringe. So you will not need to replace that second syringe. So now your cycle is complete. You can open the door and you're going to want to take your right syringe off first. Right now, we're going to take off our platelet poor plasma. You can go ahead and take your blue cap, take off your PPP, and replace it with the blue cap. Now we'll go ahead and transfer our PPP onto sterile field in the yellow cup. Now we can go ahead and take off our concentrated bone marrow aspirate. Once again, take your blue cap, put it back on to your white wing. Now you can transfer your final product onto sterile field into the red cup. At that point, it is ready to be re-injected into your patient. Now your scrub tech can take the 10 milliliter syringe in your kit and draw up your bone marrow aspirate concentrate. Okay. Now that your cycle is complete and you've handed off your bone marrow aspirate concentrate to sterile field as well as your PPP, it's time to break down and clean your centrifuge. Because your disposable is fully enclosed, this process is extremely easy. I save my blue caps so I can reattach them to my white wings so I don't get any fluid onto my machine. As a precaution, I also wipe down my white wings with an alcohol wipe to make sure there isn't fluid as I take it back through the centrifuge. I go ahead and take apart my autospin the same way I assembled it. Take this lever over to the right, pull this up, it comes out. Once again, have my window facing me. Unhook, pull my disposable out, and thread the tubing back up through the centrifuge. Okay. At this point, this can be thrown out. Now I can take my alcohol wipes or some kind of sterile wipe and I just wipe down my machine. This should remain pretty clean because the disposable is fully enclosed, so you should not be getting any fluid within here. Close my doors, and I'll go ahead and push my arms back up. Now, cleanup is complete.